Welcome to a weekly Wizardly review. Every week we take works or content from the DM's Guild to review. This is where we break them down and see how it all fits together, then evaluate them based on a few points. Lore, difficulty in implementation, balance, player intrigue and draw, and then we cap off finally with some personal points which won't be factored into our 10-star scoring system. Now, before we jump in, we have a special announcement because we've been given a special review and a wonderful opportunity to review a brand new product. Today, we are going to be reviewing the Black Void adventure module, Dark Dealings in the Shaded Souq. Now, Eric, I'm going to let you take this away from here because just before we jump in, we're going to give you guys a little bit of information on what this whole thing is about.
100%. Give you guys the context. So, Dark Dealings in the Shaded Souq. It's a Black Void scenario, and it's an adventure module for the Black Void TTRPG. So Dark Dealings in the Shaded Souq takes the protagonists on an exhilarating adventure, introducing the characters to the intrigue and the viciousness hidden beneath the pristine facades and gilded domes of the Camellia district. So while establishing the contact with the burgeoning human commune within the Camellia district, the protagonists find themselves framed for massacring exotic animals belonging to the powerful Gurayab Guild. So, incriminated in a virulent conspiracy and seeking to exonerate themselves before vigilante justice catches up to them, they unwittingly stumble across a plot with implications far beyond the Eternal City. So, the protagonists have to use whatever guile, diplomacy, and martial prowess that they can muster to survive the intricate maneuverings of traitors, esoteric beings, and callous killers alike.
We're actually going to give a little bit more information about the Black Void D12 system. So this adventure is an 89-page full-color PDF adventure for the Black Void RPG. It is ideally suited for characters each in the 65 to 75 character point range. Now for those of you that don't know what that is, more in the long review, you'll see it there. There's 15 plus enticing antagonists and other NPCs. There's 3 novel custom creatures with full stats, artwork, and descriptions. There's new detailed areas and locations and maps that all work within the core Black Void scenario. This is the first ever release stats for the Jinissar squads, Civic Guards, and more. After that, we have the easily usable and flexible starter plotline. With suggestions on how to tie this into your own story if you're working in the Black Void campaign already. There are original artworks and by the core artists from the original Black Void scenarios.
Which is why, honestly, it's so beautiful.
Absolutely. This adventure is indispensable resource for arbiters eager to introduce the Camellia district to their players and further the merchant quarter of Lydia the Eternal.
Lynn. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no worries.
Dark Dealings in the Shaded Souq is the first in a series of Black Void scenarios that can be played separately or readily integrated into ongoing campaigns. It's a very flexible module, and it's really exciting. This storyline is self-contained, but does encompass events tied to the grand campaign, making it a must-have accessory for the discerning Black Void players and arbiters.
100%. So, with that full description, you understand the context, and now we will jump into our lore section. See you there.
Alright, jumping into our lore section, Eric, the first question goes to you. Is there character/item lore in this module?
The next few answers are all going to start sounding the same, James. Yes, there's definitely a lot of lore on everything, honestly.
You know what? I agree. Each of the notable NPCs has a bunch of lore and detailing given to them, so a DM or arbiter has every opportunity to roleplay a lovable NPC.
So my question to you is there location lore?
Yes, and yes, there is.
I think what James is trying to say, guys, is yes, this story and location is steeped in a dark fantasy Middle Eastern mythos, and there's a lot of fantasy mixed into this.
You know what? The next question I have for you is there an overall plot? Which is a silly question, because there is.
Yes, absolutely. It's a well crafted and intricate plot that has several layers to the story, many of which can have elaborations on characters and other side stories.
You know what? Definitely, I agree. The way the plot weaves itself into encounters and the rumor dialogue is amazing, I feel.
Yeah, so how would you feel the adventure hook is, if there is any?
I wouldn't say hook as much as it is drags the player kicking and screaming in a good way. But that's what lends to this adventure's diverse, living, breathing, dark environment.
Yeah, I also feel that the hook fits quite well with the pre-established dark fantasy setting, and like you said, like the city in question itself, it just draws you in.
Yeah, okay, so my question for you is, does it have any tie-offs or loose ends in this story?
You know what? Honestly, it's kind of hard to nail this one down. It depends on how deep your players are willing to go, and how successful the Arbiter is at running the adventure, and how they are in the adventure itself. James?
Okay, you know what? A point I'd like to tack on here is that if you complete the story, you shouldn't have any loose ends. The only loose ends that may occur, like you mentioned, are the ones that might be intertwined with NPCs, and depending on how things played out.
Okay. So then, would you say that, does this fit in pre-established kind of D&D lore at all?
See, this is difficult to answer in short, but no. Its main connection is the basis for some of the monsters and certain themes.
Gotcha. Yeah, honestly, 110%. It's designed to be its own standalone world. It is its own TTRPG, so it's not fair to use the D20 system, because for all intents and purposes, it is completely different. It does have content and mechanics, though, that will feel familiar to people who have played D&D, though. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So this brings us to our star rating. We've rapid fired through our questions here. So how do you feel the lore is star rating wise for the lore section?
Honestly, I know this is kind of, maybe with the stuff that we've chosen to review, maybe getting a little redundant, but honestly, Black Void, 10 out of 10 for the lore. It is unbelievably crafted. It is so rich, deep, and like we mentioned, it literally drags you in, kicking and screaming, into this world, and just, yeah, it's fantastic. Honestly, it's really fantastic. That's all that I would have to say on the short side of it.
Okay, so star rating, I know my scoring, and I'm pretty sure after we've talked about it a little off camera, was a solid 10 out of 10 for this lore section.
110%.
Excellent.
So, as always, there's going to be a full-length spoiler-filled review that you can check out in the description below. If not, we'll see you in the next section, which is difficulty. All right, so on to our difficulty section. So, my first question for you, James, is how much study was required of the DM or Arbiter?
You know, as someone who has only ever really listened to podcasts of people playing with a D12 system, it was a simple Google search and reading a few articles for me, and I was very able to pick it up.
Okay, no,
Eric?
I completely agree. I also liked how the Black Void series does provide its players the core rule set to help expand on the finer points of the D12 system.
Okay, so my question for you is how much study was needed for the players?
Well, like we just said, it was very much a pick up and go kind of scenario. Same for the players as well. You could just take this and run with it.
You know what? I agreed. I'd say the only thing that needed study for both DMs and players was learning the setting overall, which is easy when it's really so well written.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Eric?
So yeah, were there any charts, maps, or tables?
Loads. Absolutely loads. There was and is an abundance of maps, tables, and the DM guidelines. That and even the creators made a specific section for all the maps and tables so you don't have to flip back and forth.
I gotta say that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Eric?
Agreed. Like, something I noticed, and I know it's a small point, but I think it's a good one to bring up nonetheless, is that the DM guidelines were all highlighted in different colors as to easily identify them when you read through and you're skimming over kind of the important parts.
Okay, so I'm going to fire a question at you. What was the level of in-game difficulty?
Okay, so this is a point that we're going to be elaborating in on our full-length review, but for here right now, it's important just to note that the in-game difficulty in terms of combat is easily suited for your group and because of the hard work of the creators.
Exactly. So the only thing I'd like to add there is that this does depend a lot more heavily on the knowledge of one's character. So typical D20 systems can help guide players with skill checks and the like, but more on that later. Eric?
So how would you say the integration of this works with like pre-existing campaigns or adventures?
This is one of the only places I could see where this work docks marks. If your table is playing a D20 system, making this change to a D12 system, although easy in theory, can be difficult.
Okay. I would say not only that, but this world doesn't exactly mesh with the typical D&D, especially Faerun setting universe. But if you were to use the wider Forgotten Realms setting, such as Kalimshan, a DM could make it work if you really wanted to use the D20 system.
Okay, so my question for you is, who or what type of party do you think this is geared towards, and how hard would it be to mesh these together?
Gotcha. All right. Well, although the D12 system really lends to an easier approach to TTRPGs in general, this is definitely geared towards an RP-heavy group who are interested in darker themes.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? This makes things a little difficult for the common murder hobo groups or the war gamers, but it's still playable. Eric?
Okay, yeah, finally, I guess, what would you say is the payoff in-game and out-of-game?
As always, so the in-game payoff isn't much in the way of loot as much as it is gratification and surviving the world. I have a few notes on that for the long review.
Okay, so of course, and once again, as we've said in other reviews, the payoff is mainly around your table, whether that be Skype, Zoom, or whatever in these current COVID days.
Exactly.
So my question for you is the reward to the in-game difficulty, like the ratio, is it appropriate?
Okay, so as a DM, I gotta say the difficulty to payoff ratio is honestly excellent. Not only does the creator have a means to scale difficulty for over-leveled and under-leveled characters, but they already have a broad range of the difficulty can scale across. Eric?
Okay, honestly, you nailed it. Now, because of the nature of this dark fantasy and the fact that it's a D12 system, the typical loot and things play a lesser role, and your reward is more straight up survival and continuing the plot, plus the experience points gained from the encounters themselves, which as a writer and creator, I feel is a fantastic way to reward the players instead.
No, you know what? I agree. Like I said before, I do have a few more points on this for our long review. However, this does bring us to our star rating. Where did you feel your out of 10 rating for difficulty would lie?
Okay, if I'm being honest, and it's not because this doesn't mean that the work itself is not fantastic, which it is. But I would honestly put the difficulty at a 7 for me personally, just because there is some serious leaps and bounds for people to jump through to get into this game. They really, it's truly its own game, and you have to be willing to know that and to accept that coming in, willing to go with the D12 system and just all those other sort of core mechanics that you need to learn, and especially if you're coming from a different TTRPG, things in our minds might end up getting a little scrambled. So that's me personally. How about you, James?
Exactly. To be honest, I'm kind of on the same page there with a 7. Not for the same reasons. Mine was more... well, it'll be elaborated on in the long review. I don't want to take much more time ranting, but suffice to say, I agree with the 7-star rating for this one. So for the difficulty section, it's getting a 7 out of 10. If you want more on that, please go check out our long review, and we will have timestamps down there, so if you just want to skim through, feel free. Otherwise, we'll see you in our balance section.
Bye.
All right. Welcome back to our balance section. So remember, balance for us is mechanics, gameplay, environment, encounters, all that stuff kind of intertwined. So I'm going to kick it off with, is the lore balanced within the work?
Okay. Well, yeah, 110%. I have to say that what I find intriguing is the fact that this D12 system complements having a balanced game and lore that drives our characters forward. What about you, James?
You know what? Absolutely. I found that how the adventure module highlights players for certain interactions and consequences was really a great way to balance the interactions and lore in-game to push things forward. Eric?
Okay, so how would you say the combat or non-combat situations are balanced?
Okay, so things like traps. Right, okay. Many of these instances were balanced by the lore and the situations the players get themselves into.
Okay.
Eric?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Just one additional note, though, is that the D12 system does assist fellow players. You're able to assist fellow players in combat and other encounters, which you're not typically can do in a D20 system.
No, you're totally right. Were the mechanics of fights, items, encounters all balanced and flexible within this work?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
After thoroughly reviewing the D12 system and seeing how this adventure was meant to be played, it's fast, it's furious in terms of the style, and it requires far less math than you do in the traditional D20 system.
You know what? Exactly. Now, don't get us wrong, we do love the D20 system and how it has some perks over the D12 and vice versa, but it really does work here. And big shout out to the creators here. Excellent work.
100%. So I would say that brings us to the end for this section. Just like in all of our other reviews, balance is something that we need to leave for the full-length review because there is so many spoilers inherent when talking about the balance because we talk about everything. So that will just bring us to our wizardly rating. James, what do you think this would score for us in terms of balance?
So, balance-wise, without spilling any beans or tea or what have you, this would sit around an 8.5 for me. Because there were some things that... There are some maybe personal gripes, again, which I might flesh out later, but there are some actual contextual things for encounters and such forth that I think could have been fleshed out better, or just don't necessarily jive with the scenario at hand.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I was gonna maybe ding it more towards 8. However, after thinking about personal gripes and setting that aside and just sticking to the objective criteria, I will agree with you on an 8.5. I do believe that there's a lot of merit and a lot of work that went into trying to make a balanced piece of work.
Absolutely.
But especially between the rich, overly abundant lore that is here, as well as with this D12 system. Like I said, yeah. So without further ado, you can either check out the full review again down below, or we'll see you in Intrigue. Bingo.
All right, we have come to our final section, Intrigue and Player Draw. So I'm going to fire off the first question to you, Eric. What about this product caught your eye?
Okay, the artwork! The team of amazingly talented artists that contributed to this project are absolutely phenomenal. Not to mention the stylistic choices and... just like the darker tone of the series. It's unlike anything that I've personally seen in settings in an RPG before.
No, you know what? I agree wholeheartedly. The artist did a fantastic job, and a big shout out to the creator and developers for all the wonderful add-ons for this Kickstarter project. The themed DM screens or Arbiter screens, dice. So big shout out to the collaborative art effort here. Wonderful job. Eric?
Yeah, so when looking through the product information, what told you, James, that this was right for your table?
You know what? For me, it was the dark fantasy setting. As a DM, I always make a point of always asking my players what sort of thematic setting they would like to be playing in, and I'll be honest, making a true dark fantasy, without it being a dark, gloomy, oppressive thing, is difficult. So, hats off. Eric?
110%, man. Like, this was and is a well thought out setting with interesting twists, intrigue, and visceral combat that balances out at most tables.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's where we're going to leave it comfortably for the short review here on Intrigue. So once again, description down below for the full-length review on Intrigue. And we're just going to go right into what our wizardly rating for Intrigue is on this project, the Black Void. So James, what would you give it?
So, I would give this a solid 9. This product for the Intrigue, if we look at just artwork alone, amazing. But we look at the fact that it's a different system, it's its own world and universe that was created by the author and his wonderful team of developers and the artists. So, you know what? It was something new.
Yep.
Dark fantasy setting. I'm in.
110,
I'll give it a shot.
110%. I completely agree with you, and likewise, 9 out of 10 wizardly rating on this one. For more reasons explaining the reason why, again, check down below. Other than that,
our final total scoring for this project is a solid 8.5 out of 10. Now, once again, we just want to reiterate that just because it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean that it's not good. We actually believe this is a fantastic work. However...
And I was just going to say, and one that you should definitely go and look at, if not instantaneously go and pick up, because this is something that is truly unique, rich, and will be really rewarding for a table that it is well suited for.
Absolutely. If you're already playing in a D12 system, this is going to be a great addition, and the world and universe that has been created here is phenomenal.
And I was going to say, and if you're looking at trying something new and going outside of your typical bounds, or if you're completely new to TTRPGs in general, this could be a really very fascinating and interesting starting point for you. And just the last thing that I'd note in that, again, right, is an 8.5 means that it's practically almost perfect. We don't like to give out perfect scores here on the channel because, you know, with anything, like, there is no true perfect 10 out of 10.
Unless it's Matt Mercer.
9.9. 9.9. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So just the last thing to talk about is our typical question in terms of, is this work indicative of what the author or authors is known for? And since this is a new studio, Black Void Games, and honestly, like, for us, you know, is this typical of them? Well, yes, because it's kind of their name's sake. This is what they're known for. Is this unique campaign setting, and the authors that have worked on this have worked on multiple other projects before as well.
So in closing, I'd really just like to say this is an amazing work. Yeah, we don't like to give perfect scores, but it's still definitely worth a look, and all that information is down in the description below. Go check it out. Links to their website, links to the Kickstarter. We'll even pull that one out too.
And when you're watching this, it will be the last day. This will have literally been in the process of releasing. So still try and get in there if you still have enough time. If not, go ahead and pick this up. It's something that we would ultimately recommend that people check out. and that if you're into this a little bit darker theme, that it's something that you definitely should grab. And yeah, as always, all the links to our social media and ways to contact us are down below as well. If you would like us to review one of your products as well, be sure to just send us an email to our Gmail down there. And yeah.
I think that brings us to the close.
Yeah.
We will
See
see
you
you
through the rift.